Hey everyone, your morning pep talk, or evening or afternoon, depending on when you're listening to this. So I repeat this over and over again, and it's because it is so important. 80% of what we create is from our unconscious mind. Unconscious, meaning we are not conscious of it. I don't say it over and over for fun. I say it because if you're not making your unconscious conscious, you should be terrified. If you do not know yourself, you do not know what repetition compulsions you are in, okay? 80% of what you are doing then, you do not know why, right? That's Freud's theory. Eric Milton talks about it. It's the basis of healing in most shamanic methods. 80%. You're doing things. You don't know why you're fighting with your spouse. You don't know why you're being a crappy parent. You don't know why you're drinking yourself into oblivion or shooting up, or why you're poor. You don't know why you have that cancer or that diabetes or that heart disease, because 80% of what you're doing and what you're creating is unconscious. That's an absurdly large number. There is a theory, which I think is true, that enlightenment is when the unconscious is conscious and the higher self is embodied in the human body. That the three minds, the conscious self that interfaces with the world, the unconscious mind, and our higher self, that they're divided here on earth, but it is not our natural state of being. And so making the unconscious mind conscious is how we step back into our power and create peace on planet Earth. One of my favorite quotes. None but ourselves can free our mind. You guys know that Bob Marley song? Don't listen to it. It's like a good little pep talk for all this. Let's talk about what's in the 80%. This is Freuds Iceberg. This is the unconscious mind. So he called it, he called it the superego. I'm not calling it the superego, I'm calling it the higher self. Because I think that what Freud calls the unconscious mind is partly in our unconscious. What he called the superego is partly in our unconscious mind. So the rules we're told to listen to in society, a lot of that is unconscious and we're just automatically acting it out. Where having the concept of the three minds with the higher self is more helpful. So, and then the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. So what's in our unconscious mind? One of the key things that's in our unconscious mind is we know our ancestors through the karmic repetitions that we're in, or what Christians call ancestral sin. We're living in the entanglement of our ancestors. So sometimes it means the oldest son dies in a car accident at 19 years old. What we don't remember, we're doomed to repeat. It is a foundation of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud's, the father of psychology's theory. What we don't remember, we're doomed to repeat. 80% of our mind is unconscious. Children die and get molested because of this, okay? Mothers who have been molested that think they're going to protect their children forever, all of a sudden, when the daughter turns 8, dissociate into their trauma and drop the daughter off at the person that molested them's house to babysit, because we are not in charge of our minds right now, most of us. I work very hard to be conscious and aware of what every thought is, where it's coming from, if it's mine, if it's a God thought, if it's something that's in my space that I don't want in my space, because we have to bring light to the unconscious mind. One of the things about Sikhism that I think is kind of awesome, because we're talking about enlightenment, in enlightenment, we are one with all. So people talk about a spiritual awakening, which is kind of what the planet's in, but it's after they are awake and realize that we are spiritual beings in a human experience, that enlightenment is, you know, when we can like replace missing limbs, when we can teleport. Part of the spiritual awakening is going to be like, oh, I made fun of all these people and thought they were weird for healing cancer without doing chemo, but oh my gosh, that's like our natural state of being, right? Because cancer, it's a message. People like freak out. We all have cancer all the time, right? Like there's cancer cells and it becomes something, and what does it become something? It's a message, pay attention, right? Our body wants to be in harmony. If it is out of harmony, it is a message to go resolve something. Bad karma doesn't exist. You can have results of this harmonious, unfinished business that feels like bad karma. And that you want to handle, right? It might look like if there's a lot of heart disease in the family because somebody, maybe their children died in war and they were heartbroken over it, or their husband left and they were heartbroken and nobody and that ancestor didn't know how to heal it, and then it becomes this pattern of people losing loved ones and the heartbreak just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So 80%. So ancestral sin or karma. Most people are not resolving that. Most people have no idea how to resolve that. It's what I'm resolving with family constellations with people and journeys and everything else that I do. Ancestral sin. Childhood wounds, which are often because of the ancestral sin. It's the ancestral sin that gets the childhood wounds in there in the first place, because if our parents were loved the way that they were supposed to be, they'd live us the way that we were supposed to be loved and teach us how to discipline, and that's not how it's been, right? Childhood wounds. Universal consciousness. So universal consciousness on this planet is filled with suffering. We're all plugged into the energy of planet Earth, right? We're kind of all, planet Earth is kind of like a big dirty fish bowl. Not like totally true, because Mother Earth is actually also magnificent, but most of our thoughts are hijacked, and most people have not worked on the 80% that's unconscious. I'll tell you, some people that I work with have suicidal thoughts just from dipping lower in energy for the day and kind of being burnt out, and it becomes a vibration of suicidal thoughts. There isn't suicide in their family. They haven't had it. It's because they're tapped into the universal consciousness. When their energy dips, they're at that matching vibration. They go to sleep, they feel better the next day. We are all one. That's what I was going to say about Sikhism. That's part of what enlightenment is. That's why when you're enlightened, you realize you can turn air into a missing limb for somebody, because air is a molecule and you can change the molecule and create the missing limb, right? Or you can use the phantom limb, the energy of the phantom limb from their divine blueprint, put more earth in it and create it into earth. So when you realize you are one, you can start doing these things that are our birthright as human beings. So part of it, and this is where Sikhism is cool in my opinion. So right, the Indian culture has Sikhs, S-I-K-H, Sikhism. And what they teach is to work on one's own shadow. One's own shadow is what's in the unconscious mind. The shadow, sometimes you put some light on, you're like, hey, I was missing that part that was empowered. I'm going to claim that empowered part back, because maybe it's been disempowered women in the line that you've inherited. So it's not all bad stuff in the shadow, but the shadow is where, what Yogananda would say, Satan has control of our mind. It's where those triggers are, those hairpin triggers that make people go into a rage. Try to go figure out what triggered that, get it the heck out of there, and get some peace in your body. There's wacky stuff in our unconscious mind. The more spiritual work that I do, the more I realize that planet Earth is an enslaved planet. There are aliens, and some spiritual people out there will help you remove alien implants. There's different kinds of alien implants. You can look that up. I've worked with them. When I first learned about them, I actually went to a Friendsgiving and was like, ready for this? And I started removing them, because you don't have to believe me. Don't believe me, but hey, let's remove it. You know, if you're Christian, go ahead, remove it in Jesus' name. If you're Buddhist, ask your higher self to pull it out, right? Go ahead, remove it. And when you feel an energy shift in your body, for those that you can feel energy, whoa, there might be something there to that, right? The more I've learned about how each thought that I have, each negative, undesirable thought that's out of harmony with what I want to create, is connected to something else, something deeper, most likely our ancestry. And when you heal something, things that are undesirable leave, just so you know. So other people that have had spiritual awakenings, I can't remember the one guy's name, but he was like a good scientist researcher, so he wrote everything down. And so he would talk about like demons are actually just messengers of bad stuff, but not actually bad, and angels are just messengers of good stuff. And so that's that we're all one. Good and bad exists on 3D Earth, not on 5D Earth. So the Sikhism, when they say like Satan's grasp on our mind is just their own shadow, because when we are enlightened, we know Satan is just my shadow, your shadow, right? So when we do our work, there's no room for the evil on the planet. So it's not, some people go out and they just battle evil. Listen, I'll do extractions from people. If you're coming in and you're all distraught, I'm gonna remove stuff. But if you're still a matching vibration for that messenger to come in, the messenger's gonna come back in until you heal why it was there. Sometimes it's from hidden, secret, excluded people in the family, right? So I can't teach you how to do all of psychology in 12, 15 minutes, whatever I'm talking for. I do have an ascension psychology training that I'm coming out with, because it is essential in order to save humanity and in order to save planet Earth that we get on this work. And I'm grateful for all the coaches out there that are already doing this stuff. It's part of why the coach movement is here, right? Because we need to do this work. Humanity is starving, whether you realize it or not, for this. A lot of the greed that is out there right now, that motivates people to act out of integrity, it's out of balance with harmony. It's out of balance with our humanness. Some of us are aligned with the perpetrator, which to me, it still baffles me, the aligned with the perpetrator. Whatever karma I inherited, it was not that. I inherited more being the outspoken one that calls out the perpetrator, but then winds up people thinking, oh, she's so mean to them or whatever, right? No, I'm not mean. I'm just not going to enable the perpetrator. If we're enabling the perpetrator, they're not being held accountable and responsible to get better, right? I'm not going to participate in that disharmony. And so, yeah, it might make people feel uncomfortable sometimes. Part of standing in our light is being okay making people feel uncomfortable. So anyway, you're not working on what is in your unconscious mind, what is in your family's morphic field, or the soul of your family that you're intrinsically tied into through your DNA, that when the issues are there for too long manifests as physical disease, which means when you go and you heal it, the disharmonious energies and the message goes away and the body can be restored to health. I think people should start to be terrified. And I'm saying that because the consciousness of humanity has been fear motivated. So for those of you that are in 12-step work, lots of times people fall off the wagon. I'm in sobriety, I'm in recovery because I'm about to lose my partner, I'm about to lose my kids, I'm about to lose my job, I'm about to lose my house. I better go do something, right? Ooh, there's that fire to go take some action. As soon as the family is stabilized, the kids are stabilized, the job is secure, the house payments are caught up, relapse. So as a society, we haven't been health-based, we've been fear-based. And that is all changing. Don't be the last one to get on the health-based wagon and start to be curious about who you are. Who has my family been? Who have my ancestors been? Which ancestor am I entangled with that I'm in this situation that I don't enjoy? Because when you go and you face it, there's the path to freedom on the other side.